What's up, dudes? Max here. So we're back from Summer Games Fest, and today is the official day. There is no longer an embargo on some things that we saw. And obviously the first thing that I probably want to talk about the most from Summer Games Fest is the games that we checked out at Capcom. And there's a few, but clearly the one takes priority over all the others, and it's Resident Evil 9. So let's just talk about Resident Evil 9. Capcom had a pretty unique presentation for this at Summer Games Fest. They had a special, I would say, visual demo. So you'd walk into a room with a whole bunch of other people, and you probably saw some shots from it on Twitter. But yes, we were able to witness a gameplay demonstration that was not, you know, in our control, but was piloted by a Capcom representative and was pretty much a walkthrough of what seemed like the beginning of Resident Evil 9. So this is going to come with a caveat. There's some spoilers here. You start the demo as the brand new girl. It starts just the same way it does in the trailer. She's restrained. She's in this place where she doesn't know where she's at. She eventually finds her way out, and you begin the game in a weird, unknown, somewhat like hospital location. It feels like a psychiatric ward or a mental hospital, something like that. And you just have to start making your way through this place and figure out what's going on and why everything's happening the way it is. So you're just making it through this extremely spooky hospital walls and stuff like that. By the way, the game is in first person. Yes, you're walking around very similar to the beginning of like a Resident Evil 7 or Resident Evil 8 without many resources. There's no gun. There's nothing like that. The more you start walking around, you find like empty bottles and you're like, oh, I have empty bottles. That acts like almost like a throwable, and you start picking up other small things, items along the lines of like fuses and screwdrivers and, you know, basic tools that sort of fill out the early portions of RE7 and RE8 that does have that kind of stuff. So yeah, as you start making your way through this hospital with a bunch of creepy little fake outs and freak outs and things that are scary but not inherently the big risk of the situation, the big risk happens because you find a dead body and they are obviously zombified, and this absolutely horrible, grotesque, like 9 to 10 foot tall weeping creature grabs the zombie corpse and starts eating it, and it's like all up your grill and right in your face, and it's massive. It doesn't immediately aggro Grace, the main character, so you just have to run away. You just start booking it away from this thing. And then I realized, oh, what we're looking at is something pretty similar to Resident Evil 7 and Resident Evil 8, obviously, because it's in first person. But in RE7, you know when you go in the kids' room, and the kids' room is mostly sort of like a walkthrough section where you get like a bunch of spooky stuff that sort of happens to you until the action kicks in. And RE8, when you go to the house, I can't remember what the name of the house is, but the house with the big crazy baby, spoilers for the crazy baby, and now those portions are cool. They're not exactly, I would say, heavy combat focused or super gameplay centric. They're more like atmosphere and getting you into some spooky puzzle thing that you sort of have to solve as you get through it. And that's what this kind of was from this presentation. It was like, okay, yeah, so you're pretty much in a very similar moment. You don't have a gun, you don't have a weapon, and it's all about Grace making her way around this monster. There's some cuts in the action that take place during this demo, but a lot of freaky moments where this monster is sort of roaming around Mr. X style from Resident Evil 2 Remake, and you kind of have to like get the hell out of there or make it down a certain hallway to get the hell out of there. My impressions from this are that, yeah, it's very obviously opposite to the, adjacent to the stuff you see in Resident Evil 7 and 8 in those specific sequences. There was no gun, and there was no direct, like, I would say, gameplay engagement mechanics when we're watching this demonstration. But it is visually crazy. Like, I would argue looks as good, if not like probably one of the best looking Capcom games I think we've seen so far. So visually, it's just ridiculously striking, man. There's not a lot to say beyond that. She eventually like escapes and you make your way out in a very similar fashion to like Resident Evil 2, Leon or Claire crawling under that grate and barely making it away. It pretty much ends with you escaping the monster, finding the items that solve the puzzle of how to get out of there. And that's about it. So, you know, with that being said, I think I thought it was very impressive, but at the end of that presentation, I saw myself sort of like wondering what RE9 was going to be like and if it was going to be drastically different than previous Resident Evils. And at the end of that, I'm like, oh, so this is pretty much this, you know, like it's sort of an introductory sequence. I'm going to say it's 99% the beginning of the game, because they are teaching you like the most basic things, like, you know, this heals you, or that you go over here and you can use this item here, like that basic kind of stuff. And I do believe that there's going to be a lot more to the game, but we'll talk about that in 1 second. Because this is all we see. This is it. The demonstration concludes. There's no more teasers, but the Capcom developers do say that there is a lot more that is in store for the game that they are pretty much waiting to show, and things that will be available at a later date at Gamescom or whatnot. There will be more reveals as we get closer to the game's release that's happening in 2026. But that's not the end of the story. So, like I said, my impressions were pretty good, but I kind of wanted to see combat and how things were going to work differently. And the big reveal at the end of this presentation is that when you go into the menu and there's an options menu for perspective control, and we saw this entire demo in first person at the very tail end of this reveal, it shows that, dude, you can also choose third person. And then it briefly shows the camera pulled out and you see like Grace, the main character, and she's walking around and doing stuff. And that's pretty much the actual end of the presentation, which is crazy. That's crazy that the game is now giving us the option between a first and third person. So, like I said, this isn't the complete end of the story. The first person, third person reveal was kind of their big secret, that RE9 is a first-person/third-person game, and you get to make that choice as a player whether you want that or not. It's not exactly intuitive because you got to go into a menu to do it. But after that, I got a unique opportunity in that same day that was, I think, pretty limited. And thanks to the Capcom guys, I was able to play this same sequence that was in the visual demonstration. So I just got to sit down in a dark room, and with no cuts in the action, and about a 30 to, I think it was about a 40-minute total time that I had to get through it, I was just able to pretty slowly just check this thing out and play it and see what it feels like. Because from my perspective on that end, it was cool, but it felt very straightforward, and it felt very from the visual presentation, felt very straightforward, and it felt very like on the rails in a certain way to get you into the action at the start of the game. But then I played the demo, and this is different. And you get the big monster, and it shows up, or she shows up, or whatever, and it starts like stalking and hunting and following you, and you always have like an escape. You can always sort of go back to the room that you initially came back to. So that happens when the monster shows up. It sort of like leads you down that path, because you obviously can't go down to the other path, which is where the puzzle is, and you don't have the solutions for it. The monster seems to always get in the way of what your next objective is, right? So you go back and you kind of restart the puzzle by going back to the infirmary room that you opened up in, right? That you first awoken. And then you revisit those areas where the monster first showed up and it's no longer there. And you can hear it like in the walls above you at times. So it sounds like it's utilizing vents or grates all around this facility to move around, even though it's massive. It's really big. It's kind of funny. And yeah, you're just collecting things, but as soon as like it feels like you collect something, in the moment that you feel like I've just accomplished something, or I feel like I might be safe, something happens. Like there were several moments where I was playing through this thing and slowly making my way and like crawling very slowly through this stuff to get to my next objective, or to get where I thought I needed to go. Some environmental thing would happen, like lightning would go off or something. There's another part where, yeah, this creature aggroed me and I was running away. Then I finally made it back to the room, you know, the opening room. But upon doing that a second time with this new thing that I got, like a screwdriver or something, right? When I got there, I felt like I was safe, and then lightning struck and the lights blew up for some reason. Like there was like electricity surge. Scared the shit out of me, man. When I I don't feel like I was that freaked out by the demo experience visually, right? When we were just watching somebody play it. But when I was there and there was no cuts and I was going through it, it was friggin' terrifying, man. And I realized something as I was playing through this. You're going through and you're making your way down hallways and you hear this thing in the vents and then it goes away for a long period of time. So you just go back to your tasks and you're trying to like get to a new spot. And then suddenly it just drops out of the roof. There's these like holes in the vents, I'm sorry, holes in the ceiling and shit, where it would just like plop down. And all of a sudden it's just in your face. You're like, holy shit, and now I have to solve this. And I realized as I was hiding in a corner with nothing but like an empty bottle to distract this, just waiting for it to get to this spot so I could slowly creep around the corner and maybe just book it in one direction or something like that, just run as fast as I could to get into hopefully a safe zone. I realized I wasn't playing the same stuff from RE7 and RE8 like I was talking about. I wasn't playing these like cinematic puzzle moments. Dude, I'm playing Alien Isolation. Like, straight up, this was not anything like I've played in RE before, and I really realized it when this thing was like dropping out of the walls, and then it started hunting me. And then it felt like it was like sentient of where I was, and it would get a little bit closer and start inching towards me, and like not exactly picking up on where I am, but I would be like super still, and I'm like, I've been here before, man. This is so Alien Isolation, it's nuts. And yeah, I heard from other people that might have had a chance to play with this that it was kind of hard. And figuring out how Alien Isolation works as a game is also like a little abstract, so you got to get used to it. So yeah, it was tough. It was challenging. There was a spot where I had everything I needed to finish this demo, but everything I did, the friggin' monster would not move past this one part of the hallway. So I'm like, I'm screwed. But I realized if I went around the other way, the monster busted down a wall or something that cleared up some debris that I could now progress. So all it was like a quick throw, like a glass bottle against a wall where it goes, huh? And it goes over and looks at that. And as soon as I get into the open, I cook it and you just hear this thing screaming at you as it's running right behind you. I'm like, holy. So yeah, when I was playing that obviously in first person, dude, with no weapons attached, and it's just about getting from, you know, creating a game plan to go from here to there, then I'm gonna grab this, and then it screws everything up. It's just like Alien Isolation with a lot of Mr. X Resident Evil 2. But it pretty much ends there, and whether or not all that stuff comes back, I don't know, because again, we don't get a gun or anything. As a heads up, I also played this entire sequence at first in first person, and then I'm like, let me try this in third person. And then I played it in third person and I was like, you know what? I'm going back to first. I think these sort of creepy, meandering, walking around sections, if these are going to be sections in Resident Evil 9, are probably better in first person. But a note, and this is not anything hinted by Capcom, this is just me coming to my own conclusions. When you select first person mode as this character in this scenario, it says first person recommended. But you can switch to third person. So if this is recommended, then there's going to be one that's third person recommended, right? Just throwing it out that there's going to be other sequences in the game that are likely recommended for the other one. That being said, there was no inclination of other characters. We've been theorizing since the trailer that we're going back to Raccoon City. Leon might show up at some place. Jill might show up at some place. Some of these classic characters that we know. And there was none of that. Pretty much this thing ends right at a bridge point where it feels like the main character is about to go to a new area, a new part, a new path, or a new gameplay sequence of some kind. This felt very introductory, and it felt like this could be what Grace does. Grace could play a game that is very similar to RE7 and potentially RE8, and maybe the first half. And possibly you play as another character in third person that is a little more action-oriented. It's sounding a little RE6-ish, I get it, but I feel like the tone of this is quite cool. While I wasn't feeling super great about RE9 from watching that, I'm like, this is this is a little too similar, you know, to the previous games. After playing it, my ass was put in a scenario trying to survive against that monster for a period of time and escape while not getting, you know, murdered by it. It made me realize this is very Alien Isolation, especially since I have no weapons, and especially since I just have to sort of like solve puzzles of how do I get from here to there if the monster is doing this in between there. Like, what is the game plan? You know what I mean? That is all Alien Isolation is almost throughout that entire experience that I had with it. Do I think the entire game is going to be this? No. I don't think all of RE9 is going to be an Alien Isolation like. I really don't. That doesn't make sense that there would be like a city, you know, potentially, especially one that they show in trailers and locations that they show in trailers, and you just sort of walk around and avoid one monster. There were no other creatures in this gameplay demo, this gameplay presentation. But yes, I do have like a theory that other characters will be there and they will have accompanying play styles. The big bet theory is that, like, yeah, Grace sort of has RE7, RE8 spooky areas, while maybe a Leon has more action-oriented things where he's like fighting stuff a la RE4, and maybe potentially Jill could go back to destroyed Spencer Mansion or some shit. Oh, that thing really blew up. But, you know, something along those lines, where she can have static camera. That would be amazing if there was something like that. We have like a little reference to all of the RE games that came before. But there's no hints of that. There's nothing leaning in one direction or the next. It is just the one character, Grace, at the beginning of this, and that is about it. So that being said, I'm very much looking forward to more. My impressions were a lot better after playing it than it was just watching it. And that creature was hunting me. And I truly feel that creature is Lisa Trevor. I do. I think it might be Lisa. It sounds a lot like her. It has weird mannerisms and stuff like that are almost Lisa Trevor-like. I'm going to throw out another big brain theory that we're back in Raccoon City. You pretty much knock Lisa Trevor off a huge, you know, chasm, and then she falls to the bottom, and you never see what happens to her in Resident Evil 1 Remake. And there's some crazy, almost fan-fiction-y stuff that happens that might not be canon in Raccoon City, which, Resident Evil Operation Raccoon City, which I'm like, I don't think that's true because Claire gets shot in the face, you know, in the end of those games at times. I don't know if any of those are technically, like, really canon. It was truly terrifying. This thing was mega spooky as it was hunting me. So anyway, looking forward to more. Can't wait to see what Gamescom offers. If we're gonna get a hint or inclination of further gameplay developments beyond the thing that we saw, because it did feel pretty self-contained. It felt like almost a tutorial, but a pretty challenging one that is just going to sort of terrify you like right at the beginning of the game. But again, most of these things are assumptions. All we have to go by is just that this demo is the way it is, and Grace is the main character right now, and we'll see how things develop and change over the next couple of months. Anyway, I'll be back with more as soon as possible. There were a couple of other games at Summer Games Fest that I got to check out, if not play, including Onimusha and Pragmata. So if you guys want to learn more about that, I'll make separate videos for them as I go throughout this day. So stay tuned, don't go anywhere, subscribe if you like it, and we'll be back with more Summer Games impressions as soon as possible. My name is Max, and I'll see you dudes next time.